welcome to week 5 of the prep football season. Quick slant here. Sports editor Scott Zucker along with sports writer Zach Dean.
That was not nearly as good as mine.
I don't have that kind of energy.
We're going to have to put a poll up because I usually get to sit in the hosting chair, so this is kind of weird for me, but I'd give you a 7.
I'm much older than you.
That's true.
Either way, it's better without Chris Boyle.
That is something we can all agree on. Yes. Very true.
Let's get to the game, shall we, Zach?
Week 5. That is 1 week, I believe, from the halfway point.
That's very, very good math there.
That's quick math.
The big game, the classic matchup every year for the last 3 years.
Yep.
Dr. Phillips coming to town, take on Mainland over at the stadium. What's the stadium called now?
Daytona Stadium. Don't call it municipal. Thank goodness I don't have to spell municipal anymore. So Daytona Stadium is much easier to spell. First game for Mainland at home this year in the regular season. They haven't been there in a month since losing to a Popka in the preseason classic. But on paper, it's a really good game. Dr. Phillips, defending state champion. They did lose pretty much everybody on offense. Yeah. So I don't think, it's going to be tough to be as good as they were last year, and I don't think they are. Coming off a 38-7 loss to a Popka. If people like to compare those teams, Mainland lost to a Popka 28-13 in the preseason, so take that for what it's worth.
That's always how it works. Those
that's
are
pretty
totally
much
dependable.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only comparison you can make. Mainland coming off an easy win over Pine Ridge. They seem to have gotten things back on track after an 0-2 start where people with pitchforks were standing outside of Mainland High School. You can't start 0-2 at Mainland, so 2-2. They seem to have figured it out. DeAndre McMillan 9 touchdowns in 3 weeks. I think that's pretty good. Really good for fantasy.
Yeah.
I
drafted DeAndre.
You could have used him last week for your fantasy team.
Let's not talk about that now.
But I think we all, and I went back and forth on this one, but me, Chris, and Godwin all had Mainland winning. I actually had Dr. Phillips winning, and then I thought, you know what? It's Mainland's home opener. They're on a bit of a roll right now. Dr. Phillips probably isn't as good. And again, the glue that holds it all together, Dr. Phillips just lost to a Popka by significantly more than Mainland did at the beginning of the year, so that's my reasoning. So I'm going with Mainland.
Flawless reasoning.
Yep.
I want you to do a little research, come back next week, tell us exactly who Dr. Phillips is.
Who actual Dr. Phillips is.
Yes.
I've been to their school. It's huge. Dr. Phillips is a freaking massive school.
Well, and isn't there a Dr. Phillips auditorium in Orlando as well?
If Chris Boyle, our Orlando correspondent, was here, we could ask him. I would imagine there is.
I believe there is.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
Just going to know that. Moving on.
Moving
to Palatka.
Do you know where Palatka is?
Do I know where Palatka is? Ridiculous question.
What is a Palatka is the question I asked.
Who is Dr. Palatka?
Yeah, who's Dr. Palatka? This is probably our second best game of the week. 2 3-1 teams. FPC, a convincing win over St. Augustine last week, and by convincing I mean they were skirting on a running clock game the whole time. They started it out with a safety, and it kind of snowballed from there for St. Augustine. FPC was clearly didn't like suffering their first loss of the Travis Rowland era 2 weeks ago, and they made their feelings known last week. Palatka, another 3-1 team, couple big wins for them. I think the consensus is FPC's probably the better team, but again, Palatka's got a home game here. Hopefully FPC worked out the kinks from a few weeks ago. I know that red zone offense was a big focal point for them. Probably going to be another big point here because you can't go on the road and not score once you get in the red zone because those trips are can be at a premium, especially with a good team like Palatka. 7:30 start. I guess that means this is like a primetime game. Don't know if ESPN's going to be there. Don't know if NFL Network's going to be there. Don't know if it's the Color Rush uniforms, but 7:30 start means this is this.
It is a Color Rush.
This has to be televised somewhere because I don't know why it's starting at 7:30 otherwise. So if I was Chris Boyle, I would have done research on that. But
it might be the time difference in Palatka.
Yeah, they're 30 minutes behind up there.
Yeah.
All right. Again, I think we all have FPC here. Godwin has them hanging 45 on them. Chris has them holding Palatka to 9. My score is 24-14, so that'll probably be right.
Well, you're ready for the cliche alert, which means nothing. Travis Rowland will have this team ready to play.
Exactly. We're not going to overlook Palatka.
Could be a trap game.
Could be a trap game.
Speaking of trap games, Lake Wales at Spruce Creek.
I don't know if this is a trap game. This is a tough one for Spruce Creek, though. Lake Wales, pretty good football team coming in here. Spruce Creek hung with Sandalwood last week, probably better than I would have expected. That game was pretty close at halftime. Spruce Creek actually had a lead early in that game. Wheels kind of came off at the end for Creek. Another big game here, especially with playoff points are concerned. If Spruce Creek can knock off a 3-1 Lake Wales team, that would go a long way. Would give them some good momentum here to start the second half of the season after a pretty bumpy up and down starts of the year. But again, Spruce Creek with all they lost at 2-2 right now, probably where I expected them to be. I know that obviously they started the year with a blowout win over Seabreeze, and then they kind of got embarrassed against Daytona, beat Matanzas, and then lost to Sandalwood. So I think a bit of a 500 team is what we expected. That's what they've given us so far. But again, Lake Wales coming in at 3-1, coming off a win over Lake Gibson last week. If they can beat a 3-1 Lake Wales team, that'll be a good boost to begin the second half of the season. Will they win? Godwin and Chris say they will. I say they won't. So
I saw that.
That's one of the few times we all don't have the same picks this week. So this game's going to be a big swing game in the News-Journal pick. What is that? That's not professional. What happened?
I got choked up by your pick on Lake Wales. Yeah. Decided to dip your toe into Lake Wales.
And everybody calls me a Spruce Creek homer, so maybe this will...
Who's ever
well, last year during the FPC Spruce Creek game, I was a Spruce Creek correspondent, if you read the Twitter comments. So I'm thinking against the Hawks in this one, so maybe that'll I'll defeat some narratives.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's hanging on that.
Well, maybe they can sleep at night now, knowing that
they'll feel better about that.
Yeah.
Spruce Creek lost a bunch of guys, so they had their work cut out for them.
They have Terrence McMillan's a running back who's returning, who got the scoring started last week. Obviously, Marvin Scott, I know that he's been banged up and on and off this year.
What is his status? Do we know?
Do you think? No, I know that barring anything that's happened over the week, I think Marvin's fine. I know that he was dealing with, I believe, a bone bruise or a thigh bruise earlier this year that's kind of limited to his carries. But again, I know that playing Matanzas a few weeks ago, obviously a lesser opponent, I think, has kind of given Andy Price some flexibility, getting some players in and out and whatnot. And then again, Sandalwood last week, I wasn't at that game, but I know that I was personally impressed that Spruce Creek hung with a Sandalwood team that's usually pretty good as long as they did. And again, they kind of had that game right where they wanted it at halftime. And I think it's just the youth of Spruce Creek, especially on the offensive side of the ball, that is just kind of making it tough to finish games here. And that's probably what they're going to have to focus on this week against the Lake Wales team. That I could see this game being relatively high scoring, so a lot's probably going to be put on that offense.
Am I saying that Chris Boyle would have had some stats to back all that up?
Oh my God! Of course, you know him in stats. My God,
yes,
he is a numbers machine.
He is. I don't know how he remembers all that stuff. Finally, why don't we turn our attention to one of the few matchups of two locals?
Yeah.
Pine Ridge, which has had its challenges this year, going into mighty DeLand.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because Pine Ridge has to go into DeLand and get playing a Bulldog team that is coming off a gut-wrenching loss last week against Mandarin, and what was the game of the year, at least so far in this area. Mandarin, just grabs that game away from them with 24 seconds left, and ruins the perfect season for DeLand. Knocks them down a little bit, and it's a district game, so it's doubly excruciating as far as the loss goes. I have a feeling DeLand's going to come out, especially offensively. Steve Allen wasn't happy with how the offense played after that game. They only put up 165 yards of total offense and really struggled. It was a punt fest in the second half. So I have a feeling DeLand's going to come out offensively with a bit of urgency and try to put this game away pretty quickly. I'm also pretty sure this is DeLand's homecoming. So as for Pine Ridge, it's we'll call it a learning game. I know that Pine Ridge, they played a really tough schedule this year. Obviously, in the district, you had to play Mainland, which they played last week and only put up 3 points. They went up to Georgia in the first game of the year and didn't fare well. So I know that Pine Ridge is a young team. They don't have a lot of players. They've been a bit banged up. And then going into DeLand, playing a Bulldogs team that's coming off its first loss of the year in the fashion that it came, this one could get ugly.
Pine Ridge, not a team without talent, but as you said,
young
and still putting it together.
Yeah, and I talked to Kenny Pickens a few weeks ago, and they lost to Atlantic. Didn't play bad in that game, really, against Atlantic, a decent Atlantic team who they only lost to 22-0. But they had a bunch of injuries in that game. They had players playing out of position, so I think it's just a young team. Like any rebuild is going to take their lumps. I mean, shoot, you've seen it with DeLand. I mean, look where DeLand was last year. And I know they've gotten some players, but look where they are this year. So you have to go through the bumps. Pine Ridge is going to go through that this year. They're going to go through that on Friday. But Kenny Pickett's going to get that thing turned around, but I don't foresee it happening Friday.
Let's give a little love. We weren't going to talk about this one. I'll throw it on you anyway. A little love to Trinity Christian.
Hey, 4-0, the battle of unbeatens this year. Yeah, that Rayburn has that team playing good football, and again, this is going to be their toughest battle of the season, no doubt about it, with Foundation. But you never know. I mean, shoot, Trinity Christian wins this game, gets an impressive win over another 4-0 team, and all of a sudden you want to talk about a sleeper team who we didn't see in this area making the playoffs. I mean, how can you overlook Trinity Christian? So kudos to the guys over there in Daytona. Again, a school and a football mecca in West Volusia that's got a bunch of schools to compete with.
Right.
He's got them playing well. So shout out to the Eagles. And, they haven't been relevant since Amari Archibald was there, Mr. All-Everything in Volusia County. So it's good to see them after a really down year last year to come back with a new head coach and playing some really good football. And, again, they win this week against Foundation. It's going to be tough to not talk about them going forward.
Absolutely. And, they pull away that win of another unbeaten team. You got to take a look at them.
It's like the Miami Dolphins in the NFL. No one wants to talk about them, but hey, they're 2-0, one of 7 unbeaten teams left. So you have to talk about them at some point. Fins up. Kenny Stills.
That'll be over after this week.
The Raiders? All right.
This is the Raiders' win this week.
Gruden. Chucky.
It's Gruden's win.
Gruden, who said that.
It all starts now.
Gruden, who said last week they need a better pass rush. I thought that was hilarious. Really, John?
If only they had someone to do that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we'll cover that in our NFL video, though.
Stay tuned for that one as well.
Come on back.